Let's talk about some of the major floods that have occurred in Arizona. Nothing on the level of China or even Johnstown in Pennsylvania, but still some notable flooding. So let's take a look at some of those. So in 1891, there was the Great Flood in Phoenix. A series of severe storms came into the area. Major river flooding occurring along most major rivers, including the Verde River, the Salt River, and the Gila rivers, all of which kind of flow into or through the Phoenix area. The Salt River expanded to nearly 3 miles wide in the Phoenix area. 3 miles wide. That's absolutely fantastic to think about. There was a railroad bridge between Tempe and Phoenix at the time, completely destroyed, leaving Phoenix without a rail connection for almost 3 months. And you think at the time, the 1890s, we're talking the Wild West here. The railroad was it. Without that, tough living. It was the largest recorded flood in Arizona history. Again, due to a bunch of storms rolling in, river flooding. Here's a lovely picture of the Great Flood. Yeah, just everyone out, just relaxing and taking pictures. The spring flood of 1978, again, significant rainfall, mostly up in kind of central and northern Arizona, falling on the steep slopes of the Mogollon Rim. It's as you kind of start to go, if you're driving from Phoenix and you start to go, up towards the higher elevations. So think like Prescott area, think Payson area. These are all areas along the Mogollon Rim. So a lot of storms up there. Water just came rushing out of there, and flooding occurred over much of the state as a result from the rainfall and all this rainwater kind of funneling down from the higher elevations. The most extensive flooding occurred in the Salt and Verde basins. Again, there's those two rivers. So you had a huge volume of water rushing down at the time now, normally dry Salt River. And so by the time it hit the Phoenix area in western Maricopa County, it was just a massive flood. And the water in the Salt River, which flows just south of the airport, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, 2,000 feet of the runway was flooded and destroyed. This is the best picture I could find. So there's downtown Phoenix, with a few buildings, 1978. But yeah, the airport, the end of the runway is just completely flooded out and destroyed. 1970, the Labor Day floods. It does remain Arizona's deadliest floods related to a storm. It had 23 deaths for the storm event, which caused flooding. Many houses, roads, bridges, other structures were damaged or destroyed. Damage was estimated at the time at $5.8 million. Doesn't sound like a lot, but this was 50 plus years ago. So the most deadliest flood in Arizona history, only killing 23. And I said only 23 because when you compare that to Johnstown 2000 or China 4 million, 23 is kind of on the low end. But that's the largest in Arizona. Tropical storm Octave in 1983, $370 million in flood damage in southeastern Arizona. A lot of farmland and crops destroyed, roadways, houses, that kind of thing. So heavy rainfall in Tucson, floodwaters from the Santa Cruz and Gila rivers spread across these flat fields, oftentimes where there was farming occurring. There was 14 fatalities, almost 1,000 injuries attributed to the flooding. One freeway underpass was filled with 9 feet of water. Here's, I believe this is the Santa Cruz River as it's kind of flowing up, kind of outside of Tucson. Yeah, so you can see how extensive that gets, and as it kind of flows into these flat desert areas, it just really spreads out real wide. And then we had the winter floods of January 1993. This was a series of storms again. So a lot of these are kind of the summer months, monsoon months. So you had a series of storms coming into Arizona, heavy, prolonged amounts of rain across the across the state, excuse me. So this is in January, so you also have some melting snow from the highlands adding to the water in the rivers. All of this, so by this time in the 90s, a lot of the rivers in Arizona have been dammed up. And so there's dams, and behind the dams are reservoirs. Well, if you get too much water in the reservoir, that could, possibly damage or destroy the dam. So a lot of water had to be released from the reservoir. So again, high releases from virtually all reservoirs along Arizona rivers, including the Salt, Verde, and Gila rivers. There they are again. All of that pouring into kind of Phoenix area. All three of those rivers kind of dump into the Phoenix area. So if all three of those are flooded, Phoenix is going to get flooded. At the time in 1993, portions of the new Mill Avenue Bridge were being constructed in Tempe. If you've ever been to Tempe and you know the Mill Avenue Bridge, goes right over the Tempe Town Lake, which is actually part of the Salt River. But yeah, so that destroyed some areas of the newly being built Mill Avenue Bridge. 8 deaths, 112 injuries attributed to the floods. $400 million in property damage. I mean, when you destroy a bridge, that's now money is a lot. So yeah, so there's the Tempe Town Bridge, and you can see part of it that was destroyed. So those are just highlighting a few different floods that have occurred. Excuse me, in Arizona. We do get them. They're not, world record setters, but they cause damage and they cause deaths. So these are just kind of the bigger events, but oftentimes it's the small, and these were pretty much all river flooding, but it's usually the flash floods that, might kill 1 or 2 people here and there, but that will happen, 10, 15, 20 times a year. So, even though these river floods in large swaths can kill a bunch of people, it's just the flash floods that occur that kills 1 here, 3 here, 4 here, 2 there. And when you add those up, they start to really add up, unfortunately. Again, river floods, more damage, more structural damage, property damage, like what you see here, lower on the deaths, but flash floods tend to be higher in the death count. So let's go ahead and pause here, and when we come back, this section is a little bit longer, so we're going to have to break it up a little bit. We'll talk about the impacts on society that floods have. I'll see you back here in just a second.